All right, so today we're gonna talk about the 10X Growth Con. So if you saw my recent video where I react to the Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, Grant Cardone podcast, which was pretty crazy. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend you go check it out. In that video, I said if you'd like me to do a video on 10X, my thoughts on it, if anything fishy's going on, if I think you should actually spend your money going to it, leave a comment down below. And I got tons of comments on that video requesting for me to do a video detailing out 10X. And I went to the 10X Growth Con a couple years ago, back when it was at the Mandalay Bay. I didn't actually go to 10X3 this last year, but I had a lot of friends that went and they pretty much felt the exact same way. They had the same exact experience that I had. So today we're gonna talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the 10X Growth Con. We're gonna talk about, the pros, why there are benefits to going, and then we're gonna talk about some major problems or cons having to do with the Growth Con itself. And then if I personally recommend you spend your money and you go, if I'll be going back, all of that. But first, in case you don't know what the 10X Growth Con is, which according to Grant Cardone, everybody knows what the 10X Growth Con is.
How about the 10X conferences? Tell me about them.
What do you know about them? What have you heard?
I don't know anything about it.
Please, everybody knows about the 10X Growth Con.
I don't.
In case you don't know what it is, essentially Grant Cardone flies in over this 2 to 3 day period, all these speakers from very specific niches like e-commerce or digital marketing to motivational speakers. I think this last year he had Steve Harvey come in, flies in all these speakers, and over a 2 to 3 day period, they get up on stage. It's a big, big event. It's meant for motivation. It's meant for entrepreneurship, actual starting business type stuff. And it's touted as one of the best, if not the best, entrepreneur event of the year. It's supposed to be the biggest, most value-packed mastermind of the year. So today, that's what we're gonna detail out. We're gonna talk about if it's actually worth everything it's touted as. But first, before we jump into it, if you guys could please do me a huge favor, please help the engagement on the video by smashing the like button down below. Definitely hit subscribe if you haven't already, and leave any comments or questions you have down below. I love going ahead and connecting with you guys. All right, so first let's go ahead and talk about the benefits or the good of the 10X Growth Con. So right off the bat, the biggest benefit in my mind is the networking available. You've got people from all different types of industries, all different experience levels. You've got people that haven't even started their first business yet, and then you've got people that are mega millionaires that have created very, very big empire companies. And the networking potential is very, very big. So no matter what space you're in, if you're in e-commerce, if you're in real estate, no matter what space you're in, you're gonna be able to network. And if you've been following this channel for a while, or pretty much any entrepreneur channel out there, you know that the power of networking is great. There's many, many benefits to networking and building up a great network, no matter what space you're in. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, networking is almost needed. I'm not saying it's absolutely needed, but it's almost needed. And if you can master the art of networking, it will serve you greatly. And the 10X Growth Con gives you a huge opportunity to do massive amounts of networking. I know people, back when I went to the 10X2, there were people that literally just went for the networking. They weren't even out in the auditorium watching the speakers. They were just in the hallways the entire time doing their networking. And if you want to go for networking, you will have a great opportunity to do that. If you're a YouTuber or you're in e-commerce, you're a solopreneur who essentially works from your house, this is a great time to build up not just a good network of people, but essentially make potential connections or friends. Because as a solopreneur, it can get pretty lonely out there. And when you meet other people in your space that you can connect to, even if they don't live in the same city as you, if you have these connections, it can help you definitely as you move forward. So that's the first and the biggest benefit in my mind of going to 10X is you've got a massive networking potential. Now with this, it is up to you to do the networking. I saw many, many people that essentially were just off on their own. They wanted nothing to do with other people. So if you want to go ahead and actually do networking at 10X, you are going to have to kind of go out of your way to do that. But if you're willing to do that, this can be pretty great for you. Another benefit to 10X that I could see from many people out there is if you're a new entrepreneur or you're an entrepreneur who wants some kind of hype motivation, the 10X Growth Con it goes all out on kind of the firework, flashy kind of hype motivation. If you want to get motivated, for the next year going forward, 10X can be good for you. Now, I think for some people, this isn't going to do anything motivational wise. For some people out there, especially if you've been in the game for a while, this might not do anything to you. If you've been to other events, everything like that, this isn't really going to be new. It's just going to be really hype. But if you're a new entrepreneur, this can be great. And one thing that was good is my wife hadn't been to pretty much any of these events before 10X. And it was good for her to be around other entrepreneurs and to kind of get, somewhat motivated or hyped about it for herself. So if you're someone that feels like you can benefit from the motivational factor of a big event and being surrounded by a lot of people thinking at least somewhat same-minded as you, this can be a great benefit to you. So with those two benefits out of the way, and those are the two kind of big benefits I could see, especially the networking, the motivational factor, this is only going to apply to some people. But now that we've gotten those out of the way, let's talk about the cons and what I don't like about the 10X Growth Con. And this big con that I'm about to talk about, I've got many, many friends in this space that essentially feel the exact same way that I do. So essentially the 10X Growth Con, at least in my opinion, is essentially a big pitch fest. So what I mean by that is essentially pretty much every speaker that got up on stage when I went, they would get up on stage for 45 minutes to maybe an hour and a half, and 90% of the time that someone got up on stage, it was literally to sell something. So they would get up, it was like a webinar. So those live webinars you see all the time online, essentially picture that, but on stage. So they would get up for 45 to 50 minutes, they would give whatever piece of free information or free value, which really wasn't that deep for most of the speakers. Some of the speakers were great, but for most of them, really wasn't that deep. They'd go ahead and do their presentation for 45 to 50 minutes, and then the next 20 to 30 minutes was essentially the sell. They would have their own courses or software or whatever it was packaged up for a special price for all the audience members of the 10X Growth Con, and essentially you would go ahead and take advantage of it that day or that weekend if you wanted that set special price. And there's definitely benefits to a pitch fest where people go up, they'll go ahead and package their course or their software, whatever it is, in a special way for the audience member, and then maybe give them a discount or a special price. There's definitely benefits to that, but when you go ahead and you spend a lot of money to go to an event, fly cross country, depending where you're at, you're gonna go ahead and put a lot of expense into this, even though it can be a business write-off. When you go ahead and do that, expecting to get a lot of value, and it really just ends up being a pitch fest, that's where this has left a lot of people pretty annoyed. And I'm not exaggerating when I say pretty much 90% of the speakers that got up on stage, every single one at the end had something to sell. And it's not bad when someone has something to sell, but when the whole intention of the conference is essentially just webinar after webinar after webinar, just on stage, and it's just, sell, 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 it can be pretty frustrating and tiring after a while for the audience. Russell Brunson, who owns ClickFunnels, he does a great job at this every year. The year I was there, I believe he made right about $3 million in essentially a 50-minute presentation up on stage. He went up and talked about what ClickFunnels was and then sold ClickFunnels and made $3 million from the audience in that 50-minute period. And like I said, there's nothing bad with these speakers getting up on stage and selling their products. That is great. If they've got a great product to sell, they've got value to put out there, if their product is actually worth the money, that's great. But when you go ahead and you invest all this time and potentially money to go to an event like this, wanting to get value or motivation or whatever it is, and then you just feel like you're just being sold to the whole time, it can be pretty frustrating. And one thing to note is even in that Wolf of Wall Street, Grant Cardone podcast, Jordan Belfort talked about how he hates kind of the seminar business because they're not profitable. And that's kind of the difference between 10X and most of the other seminars or events put out there. Most events are just so value forward. It's all about, you pay your ticket and then you get the value you paid for, whereas 10X is more, you pay for your ticket, you get just a little bit of value, and then you get sold on something. And that's where 10X becomes a very, very profitable business for Grant Cardone and the people that go, but it's not as value-packed, at least in my opinion, than many other events out there. So that's pretty much the main big con. That's essentially the only main negative I've heard from people talk about the 10X, but that's essentially a big one. That's gonna make someone decide whether they wanna go to or not. Essentially, if someone wants to be or is okay being sold to the whole time in pretty much a webinar type format, then it can be great. And there is other value that's put out there. The year I went, Ed Milet and Grant Cardone got up on stage and did a Q&A that had nothing to sell at the end of that. There is some value that's put out that can be good, but if you're going for the whole perspective of just tons of value and motivation, a lot of that's not gonna come. One thing to also note is that it really comes down to the eye of the beholder. Some people I've heard absolutely love 10X Growth Con. They get super fired up. It's become like a yearly ritual for them to go back, get refreshed. They love it. They grab a ton of value from it. And then from other people absolutely hate it. They're frustrated because they just feel like it's just, a sell fest or pitch fest being sold to the whole time. It really just depends what type of person. So there are both good and bad things. I didn't want to bring this video out and just, hate on the 10X Growth Con when there's obvious good things about it, especially like the networking. But for what it's touted as, it really is, in my opinion, a pitch fest. So first, let's talk about, will I be going back? Originally, when I thought about this, I said absolutely no. I'm not gonna go spend a weekend to go just get sold to over and over and over again about products I already know about. But in thinking about it, there are so many people in my space that the networking potential is great. So will I go back? Probably not, but I'm not gonna cancel it out forever. Do I suggest you go? This is really coming down to you. If it were me personally and you're looking for a great mastermind or event, or even motivational event, I definitely think there's other events out there that will be much more value for your money. But if you're going for kind of this big hype motivation, or you want to do some pretty heavy networking right off the bat, 10X can be worth your money. But like I said, would I recommend you go? Probably not. I would recommend you spend your money on another event or mastermind. But I want to make it very clear real quick that mastermind seminars, events like this, all of these are very, very valuable, and I think some of them are absolutely great and worth it. And if you look at successful people, no matter if they're financially successful, emotionally, successful, people in pretty much every niche or industry out there go to events and masterminds. Pretty much everybody in their space, their respected space, if they're successful, you can ask them throughout the year, they'll go to seminars or events, all that. So I do think they're valuable, but there's obviously better ones than others. But those are just my thoughts on 10X. In summary, I think the great thing is the networking, and if you need the hype motivation, that can be great. But for me personally, I definitely think there's better events out there, especially for your money, and ones that aren't going to be actual pitch fests, ones that are actually all about just the value that's put out. So I hope you guys found some value in this video. If you did, please go ahead and smash that like button down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to leave any comments or questions. I'll love to go and connect with you guys. Keep grinding, y'all, and I'll see you in the next video.